A 16-year-old signs for a club in Brazil. Nobody outside the city has heard of him. 2 years later, he's playing in Spain. A year after that, he walks out at the Etihad in a Manchester City shirt under the Champions League anthem. 3 transfers, 3 countries, 3 different clubs. But here's the secret. All 3 clubs answer to the same owner. This isn't luck. It isn't a coincidence. It's a system. And it's quietly taking over football. It's called multi-club ownership. And once you see it, you will never watch a transfer the same way again. So how did football become a game of empires instead of clubs? Start with a simple question. What if your club wasn't really competing alone? Multi-club ownership is exactly what it sounds like. One owner. More than one club. Sometimes 2. Sometimes a dozen. Sometimes spread across 5 continents. The biggest example has a name that sounds harmless enough. City Football Group. At the top sits Manchester City. But underneath? Girona in Spain, Palermo in Italy, Bahia in Brazil, New York, Melbourne, and more. Around a dozen clubs, one brain. City are the crown, the rest are the kingdom. And City didn't invent this. They just did it best. Red Bull are doing it. The owners of Chelsea are doing it. The people running Manchester United are doing it too. Once you notice it, it's everywhere. But knowing it exists is the easy part. The real question is the one most fans never stop to ask. Why would anyone want 12 clubs in the first place? Because 12 clubs working together aren't 12 clubs. They're one machine. And the machine starts with a single advantage. Eyes. Picture a scout in a stadium in Argentina watching a 15-year-old. Now imagine he doesn't work for one club. He works for 12. One report, shared instantly. Every club in the network sees the same gem on the same night. Then comes the copy-paste. The same data models, the same training methods, the same style of play printed across every club like a franchise. A player built for one of them is built for all of them. Then, the quiet weapon. Loans. You don't gamble your teenager on a stranger's team. You move him inside the family, where the coaching already speaks his language. Less risk, more control. Cheaper at every step. Add shared sponsors and a brand that crosses borders, and the machine almost runs itself. But a machine is only as good as what it builds. So what does this one actually produce? It produces players. And to understand how, you have to follow just one. Imagine you're 16. You grew up with a ball that was never quite round, on a pitch that was never quite flat. One afternoon, a stranger watches you play. He says nothing, he just writes. A week later, the call comes. A club wants you, a real one. It's small, it's far from the bright lights. But you go, and you play, every single week. You stop being a kid who's good and start becoming a footballer. The network is watching the whole time. 2 years pass. The call comes again. A bigger league now, faster, meaner. But strangely, it feels familiar. Same drills, same shape, the same ideas just turned up louder. You don't sink, you fly. And then, one morning, the last call. The flagship. You walk into a dressing room full of superstars, and you already know the patterns on the wall. Because you've been playing them since you were 16. No culture shock, no wasted years, no £50 million gamble. A normal club would have bought a finished player for a fortune. Your owner built one, from scratch, for a fraction of the price. On paper, it's perfect, which is exactly why we have to ask what it's costing somebody else. Because for the people at the top, the wins just keep stacking. They find talent earlier than anyone else. Their kids get real minutes, while rivals' kids rot on a bench. Fewer panic buys, fewer expensive mistakes, faster adaptation, coaches, ideas, and data flowing freely from club to club, season after season. And here's the scary part for everyone else. The machine learns. Every year, it knows a little more than the year before. It's efficient, it's ruthless, and it's winning. But empires are never free. Somebody always pays for them. And usually, it's the people who love the game the most. So picture this. You've supported your club for 40 years. Same seat, same songs, same ache every winter. Your academy produces a kid who feels like one of your own. Local, brilliant, yours. And then, one summer, he's gone. Not because he asked to leave, not because your club needed the money, but because another club with the same owner needed him more. Suddenly, your club doesn't feel like the destination. It feels like the waiting room. That's the fear critics keep coming back to. That the smaller clubs in these networks slowly stop being clubs at all and start being feeder clubs. Suppliers. A logo in someone else's empire. Then it gets stranger. What happens when two clubs with the same owner meet in the Champions League? UEFA has a rule. One owner is not supposed to control two clubs in the same competition. So when Manchester City and Girona both qualified, the owners had to restructure, lock shares away in a blind trust, and accept transfer bans just to be allowed on the pitch. Manchester United and Nice hit the exact same wall. The rules exist, but football's networks are moving faster than the rulebook can, and they are not slowing down, they're spreading. Look across the map, and the pattern is everywhere. City Football Group keeps collecting clubs. Red Bull stretches from Salzburg and Leipzig to New York, to Brazil, to Japan, with a foot in the door at Leeds and Paris. Chelsea's owners reached into France and took Strasbourg. Ineos wrapped a network around Manchester United, with Nice and Lausanne attached. And the newcomers, like John Textor's Eagle Football, have stitched clubs together across Brazil, France, and Belgium. A story that also shows how fast these empires can wobble when the money gets tight. Some networks are soaring, some are cracking. But the direction never changes. Every year, more clubs join a system. Every year, fewer stand alone. 20 years ago, football's greatest advantage was money. Today, it's information. Tomorrow, it might be networks. Football used to be clubs competing against clubs. Now it's networks competing against networks. Maybe that's progress. Maybe it's the slow fading of something we loved. That depends entirely on who you ask. But one truth is getting harder to ignore. The most powerful club in football might not be a club at all. It might be an empire.